This is the new era. This is the new band, and we're unbreakable.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology. We can make him better than he was. Better, stronger, faster. Actually, better, stronger,
faster. Is that a
faster.
line from Starship Troopers or something?
No, it's actually the $1 Million Man.
$6 Million Man. I know that, and
I don't even know what that is.
We Brits don't do excitement, so this is the best you're gonna get.
Chris is bringing the noise today, apparently.
Speaking of vanilla,
it's just I don't understand why.
I don't think anyone does. I don't think Travis Green understands.
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust. This is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com and CKNW.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup to never wear a C, Chris, Anna, Matt, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast. This is Chris Golden at Lightforce, joined virtually by the whole gang. We got Matt Lee at Matt_Lee_61, Adam Ovenell Carter at AdamFOC, and Anna Forsyth at AForsyth 03. And the crew being all together virtually has, been made possible by the weather that we're seeing outside. Adam, I'm glad that you made it home through Bridge of Mageddon.
Thank you. Yeah, Bridge was okay. I feel like I'm not going to school tomorrow, but we'll see.
He's not going to. He's not going to school. What is it? We forgot that Adam is or still in high school. Do you need me to pick you up from school, son?
I would love that, Matt. It'd make my commute a lot shorter.
Well, I'm not going all the way to Bowen Island to pick you up, so you can walk home, boy.
Okay.
I will go first. Oh, go next. Sorry, Anna. Since you're already talking, but I did not listen to last week's episode, so I didn't hear any of the besmirching that you guys had for me. But happy to be back.
There's a little bit. There was a little.
Obviously.
Anna, how are you?
Thank you for supporting the podcast. I'm just dandy, thanks. I only have a very short commute, so it wasn't too disrupted by Snowmageddon. And it's just meant it was an excuse to wear my cute dog Wellington boots, so I'm okay with it.
Sorry, dog Wellington?
They have dogs on them.
Oh, I thought they were made of dogs. I thought she was Cruella de Vil.
Do you call them wellies? I feel like wellies
yeah.
is a very British term, so I'm surprised you didn't use it.
Well, I was trying to be a bit more neutral, I guess.
Wow.
You sound like you're from London.
Yep.
Hello, mate.
The fact that the hockey game's still on's a big thing. I don't know if you guys recall, but the San Jose Sharks and Vancouver Canucks did have a game back in the day canceled due to snow.
When?
Oh, gosh. It was like 94, 95, I want to say.
Oh, okay. When I was an infant.
Well, again, I'm old as dirt, so I know these things. But the Sharks... it's one of those, how the Vancouver Canucks get those games where the team that they're playing...
Oh, my God.
I'm guessing the Sharks just scored again?
Yeah, it was not a pretty one. This is a
we're
rough
watching the
start.
game as we go.
Yeah, so just so everyone's sort of clear, we're recording this one as the Sharks and the Canucks are playing, and it has been a rough start for Mikey D in net in his first career NHL start.
That is a bad one. Yikes.
That
one comes from Kane, goes up in the air, blockered by DiPietro right into his net.
Oh, man. Poor kid.
Oh, but to be fair, it goes off Hutton. It goes off Hutton and then goes off his blocker.
Okay, anyway, enough color commentary.
So to continue my story before I was rudely interrupted by a San Jose Sharks goal. So the Sharks were already in Vancouver. Vancouver was playing on the road and had to fly in. Vancouver International Airport shut down, so the Canucks could not get home to play the Sharks. Making matters worse, the Sharks had to fly out that night and couldn't. So I think it delayed the start of their next game, but ultimately they had to reschedule. Because again, we can't deal with snow out this way.
It's true. It's pretty embarrassing. Trying to take the train this morning was the worst experience of my life.
Oh man, I saw pictures. That was how many people can you pack on a Expo Line platform?
Oh my God, just unbelievable.
Anywho, Matt, what are we talking about this episode?
Well, I'll tell you, Chris. Sorry, I muted myself there. I'm too busy overanalyzing Mikey D's first 2 goals against. I'll tell you what we're talking about as I pull up my script here. Give me one moment. Sorry, I had a bye week last week. I'm getting right back into it. We'll be talking about Jacob Markstrom and this current run that he's been on. Of course, he's not in net tonight. We'll be talking about Alex Edler's injury and how Ben Hutton and Troy Stecher have stepped up in his absence. We'll talk about Sven Baertschi. Is his NHL season over? Is his career over? That's going to be another thing that we'll be talking about. Plus, talking a little bit more about the Canucks in the playoffs. Trade deadline only a couple weeks away. So we'll be talking about all that next. C4 Podcast, CanucksHockeyBlog.com.
So let's talk a little bit about Jacob Markstrom, the goaltender that I have nominated as 2A here in Vancouver. Jacob is currently making me eat a little bit of crow with his play. Ultimately, December was a phenomenal month for him. He might have cooled down a little bit into January, but he was next level this weekend. So has he reached that point where I should give up the 2A and start calling him the number 1 goaltender?
I think until he proves otherwise. I'm with you, Chris. I was doubting it for a long time, but I think the sample size is big enough that you can actually say, yeah, okay, he's playing like a number 1 goalie right now. And who knows how long that will be. I honestly don't know how to tell if it's something that will continue into next season or what. But I was at that Calgary game and he played unbelievably well. Like, Johnny Gaudreau had countless chances and Markstrom stymied him time and time again. It was something to watch. He stole the game for them, no question.
Anna, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I've always been a bit of a Markey apologist, but I didn't see him taking over the way he has and stepping up the way he has. I kind of always had him picked over Nilsson, but I thought there was a much narrower margin than there turned out to be. And yeah, if we're entering a time when the Canucks goalie present is a bit uncertain, I'd really like to just have Markstrom in net, even as that very solid placeholder.
I think for me, going into the season, it didn't matter if it was Markstrom or Nilsson. I was just looking for somebody to sort of, quote unquote, take the reins, so to speak. And, I didn't really care if it was Markstrom or Nilsson. In this case, I'm glad that someone has sort of stepped up. Of course, Nilsson being traded as a result of it. But like Adam said, what we've seen from Markstrom over, what is it now, the past 3 months, maybe dating back to December, has been nothing short of very hot play. And if you read it from Jason Botford in The Athletic, he did attribute a lot of Markstrom's success this season to Ian Clark being back as their goaltending coach. And of course, we've seen Ian Clark work his magic with Canuck goaltenders in the past. And I do think that Ian Clark has played a role in it. And I think also it's just a bit of, maturity on Markstrom's game. And, he's not by any means young. He's quite well established in the NHL now. I think he's somewhere around 29 years old. So he's right in the middle of his quote unquote prime, so to speak. I think that it's good that Markstrom stepped up and seized the number 1 spot in Vancouver. And I think outside of Elias Pettersson probably is making a very strong case to be the team MVP.
I think that's, aside from Pettersson, Markstrom's a clear number 2.
Yeah, I think there was a poll, somewhere on Twitter on Saturday night about the team MVP. And I was just, I think there is the clear number 1, 2, but there's a big gap, right, between Pettersson and Markstrom.
Sure. The Canucks aren't even in sniffing distance of a playoff spot without Pettersson, but Markstrom has kept them there, I think.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about goaltenders needing to steal games for you that you have no business being in, and I think Saturday's game against the Flames was very indicative of that. Like, Jacob Markstrom gave the Canucks a chance, 45 shots on net?
47.
And
plus all 3 in the shootout.
And, without that, the Canucks don't even get 2 points, let alone just 1. Or 1 point, let alone 2, I should say.
It's true, and I should have said this earlier, but when was the last time a Canucks goalie actually fully stole a game?
That's a great point, actually, because I think you'd have to go back to the Luongo kind of Schneider area before you find a goaltender that actually stole a game the way Markstrom did on Saturday. And I think that game on Saturday was the exclamation point on the kind of run that Markstrom's been on over the last couple months. I do think that Thatcher Demko does become the heir apparent one day, but I think for this season and probably all of next season, it is Jacob Markstrom's net to lose.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
I think that's fair.
and that's clear, right? And just to give some statistics here, Jacob Markstrom has faced 1,328 shot attempts. That actually places him fourth in the NHL. The goaltenders above him, Fleury in third, Hellebuck in second, Gibson in first.
Is that good? It sounds
Markstrom,
good.
yeah, and he's seen a lot of rubber. That puck is coming at him a lot. And again, Canucks blue line probably has a lot to do with that. He has played only 42 games compared to Gibson and Fleury, who have 46 and 49 respectively. So if you were to go and average the fact that, let's say, 30 shots against is what the Canucks seem to be giving up, he could arguably, if he had the same number of games as Marc-Andre Fleury, have seen the most shot attempts in the league. He has saved currently 1,209 of those shots for a save percentage of 0.91. And if we look at the save percentage here, give me a number of games played as being a fair barometer as to where he would rank. What would you say I should include? What? 25?
What was the question?
Among goalies.
Yeah, what are you asking?
So I'm looking at the NHL website right now. So I can filter down based on games played to look at the save percentage. But I mean, if I don't, we have goaltenders who have a 1.0 save percentage. So give me a number of games.
Oh, so you're saying
Okay,
what
sure,
is?
25.
Yeah, I would say 25.
25. Okay. So his 0.91 save percentage has him at 19 spot within the league. So the argument to suggest that he is a number one goaltender would be good for a team not currently in the playoff hunt where they are. Only to throw a little water on the Markstrom fire here.
Right, but I also think you got to think about his last, the beginning of the season. The goaltending was kind of a hot mess, and it's got a lot better. So, I mean, if you can filter that, maybe. But yeah, he's a top 20 goalie. He's not an all-star.
I don't think anyone's
playing at it lately.
Yeah, but no one's here saying that Markstrom is by any means like a top 5, top 10 goaltender, but I do think he's at least a top 20 goaltender at this point.
Yeah, he's right now he's playing like an actual number one goalie, not an elite goaltender, but a number one.
Yeah, and he's doing it behind Eric Branson and Derek Folio every night. So yeah.
Oh my goodness, that defense. Man.
He is top 20. If we look at 25 games played minimum, he's top 20 save. He's top 20 GA, as GA has him at number 17, based on that statistic. Just looking through the list.
Oh my God!
You turn the game
score
off.
Again? Wow.
Just watch it. PDR,
I can't not watch. I was nervous
like
for
DPD.
It is our job to watch.
I was nervous for DiPietro coming into this game. And this just confirms my suspicions.
Yeah.
Weren't you the one on the Play M in Chicago bus?
Yeah, playing him against Chicago was a lot better than playing him against San Jose.
But the thing is, we now know that they didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We like I think DiPietro. Never mind. We'll talk about it another day.
Here's a question.
Let's wrap up the Markstrom debate.
This is not about Markstrom. This is the top 2 goaltenders, GA minimum games 25. Any guesses as to who they are? Top 2.
Sorry, what was the question?
Top 2 goaltenders, GAA right now.
Carter Hart.
You know who they are.
And Jordan Binnington.
Minimum 25 games played.
Oh, sorry.
I have no idea.
I will say...
No, I don't know.
No, hang on. Let me guess. Top 2 goaltenders and goals against with minimum 25 games played.
That's right.
I feel like it's too easy to say like Hellebuck and Fleury, but I do think... Is Fleury one of them?
Yeah, I would get Fleury if I had to guess.
Fleury is in the 8th spot.
What?
Hellebuck's in the 19th spot.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be Hellebuck.
Yeah, the team is too good in front of him.
So I'll be honest. This
Is it David
when I
Rittich?
say-
David Rittich?
No, it's not Rittich. When I say these names, you'll be like, "What?"
It's got to. Is it a top team?
It is. Yes, it has to be a top team.
Is Robin Leonard one of them?
Robin Leonard's number one.
Wow,
Number
good
one,
for you,
okay.
Adam.
That was a shot. That was a shot in the dark. You said they'd make me go, "Wow!" So I just that was a guess. I have no idea.
It's not another obvious one like Vasilevsky, is it?
No, it's not. It's not an obvious
Is
one.
it? Is it? I don't know if this is obvious. Is it Tuukka Rask?
It is not Tuukka. Tuukka's number 4.
Oh, okay.
Vasilevsky has been out for 6 weeks. So
Who is it?
Thomas Greiss.
What?
What?
Weird.
So the New York Islanders currently hold the top 1 and 2 spots in GAA. Leonard's at 205. Thomas Greiss is 228. Leonard's played 30 games. Greiss has played 29.
Wow.
I would like to say, Chris, that I feel like Chris, this kind of pours a little bit of water on your, the stats back it up kind of assertion here. Like, no one here is going to say that Greiss and Leonard are number 1 goaltenders, are they?
Oh no, and that's again the point that I was just sharing. It's like it'll be off the board. You're like, what the heck? The only reason I went and brought up the whole throwing water on Markstrom, and I do agree. I have to eat crow. In the last 2 months, 3 months, if depending on the timeline we're looking at, he has been hot. I'm not suggesting he's not a top goaltender in the NHL per se, but I wonder if he is your 1A. If we look at the season and his body of work, if anything, he's a good 1B right now.
All right. I mean, I feel like it's semantics at that point. Like he's playing well. You can say goals against average, sure, but you got to look at the context, right? Like he's playing so well given everything that he's playing better than a 1B, I think. But
in a vacuum for December to February, I totally agree. I truly do. In fact, I would be the guy that would tell you if the Vancouver Canucks weren't in the playoff mix, is this the guy that you're selling high to a team that needs a goaltender right now?
You might be. I mean, if the Canucks keep losing like they're losing right now.
Well, the problem is even if they're losing, they don't have enough goaltenders on contract right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
If they trade Markstrom, they need a goaltender to come back in that deal. There's a reason why Mikey D is currently losing to the San Jose Sharks. It's because the Canucks were, one phone call away from getting Alex Auld or Corey Hirsch to suit up again.
This whole conversation is crazy because they're not going to trade Markstrom.
No.
There's a 0.0% chance they trade Markstrom.
Yeah, quite apart from the number of goalies. Yeah,
trading Markstrom. Come on, Chris.
I'm of the belief that any reasonable offer that is made, Markstrom does not fit into the core that is untouchable. However,
No.
I just think there's no way. Like we said, there's no contracts. They just can't make it work.
No, yeah, that part. Okay, is why they can't do it. It's no different than if all they had left was Goodbranson and Pouliot, and Florida came knocking saying, we'd like both of them, let's make a deal. The Vancouver Canucks could not get rid of them if they had nothing else left on the blue line because the top 4 are all out. That's ultimately where they are. Look at Markstrom. Outside of when the Canucks acquired him, has his trade value been any higher than it is right now?
No, but I just still think this is a mood. There's no point in talking about this because it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris. I feel like you're outnumbered on this one. But I think I see what you're coming from. It's it's what you would call asset management. Right now, Jacob Markstrom's value to a team has never been higher. Yes. But at the same time, the Canucks are still in the middle of a playoff hunt. They have no other backup goaltenders available. There is no real goaltender ready to step in and be a number 1 goaltender for the Canucks. It's not happening. There's the young core of Pettersson, Horvat, Bester. Then why do you suggest it in the first place?
Yeah, why do you keep bringing it up if you don't think it's possible?
Well, it's no different than what goes on in Discord and Gate 16 half the time. where we start spitballing about, hey, wouldn't this be awesome?
I don't think
Like,
I don't think anyone has ever discussed the notion of trading Jacob Markstrom, though.
No, okay, you know what? I'm going to quit the podcast. Guys, final episode. Thanks for tuning in. It was a good run.
Am I the only one who thinks Chris is going way off the rails here?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm with you, Matt.
Okay,
Anna,
Yeah.
be the impartial third party.
You know what? That's
It's
fine.
just
I'm off the rails.
something of
I will
nothing.
never hypothetically talk about trade value of any player.
I'm
in the
not saying you can't
organization
talk about the
ever
trade value.
again.
I'm not saying trade value, but it's just like there's such a below zero chance that this would happen right now.
And you said as much, so I just
It's no different than trading Sutter. We talked about last episode at your prompting. Hey, wouldn't it be good to make a deal? There's
No, that's
absolutely no
different.
way. There's absolutely no
night
way
and day.
they're going to trade Sutter. Now, why not? Because they're in the playoff mix. They need the veteran leadership. I mean, whether or not that's right or wrong, that's ultimately the way they view it. Now, the reasons why they don't trade Sutter are different than why they can't trade Markstrom. And I'm not arguing that GM Jim Benning goes out and trades Markstrom. He can't. Conceivably, there is absolutely no goaltender left short of one coming back. And that hamstrings value. Every team knows it. They could take advantage of them. I'm simply suggesting, and to the point that you brought up when it comes to asset management, which is what I was talking about, which is all I wanted to suggest, is that GMJB has struggled with asset management, and this may have been the only opportunity he ever had if he wanted to go and dish Markstrom to get something back in return. This might have been it. Because I think we can all agree. If the Canucks make the playoffs this year, the rebuild is still on. Agreed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So whether or not they have a starting goaltender this year means not. But again, it can happen.
But just to again, we're going crazy off the rails with the Markstrom talk, but I will say in general though, how often do you see goaltenders traded for the value that you'd like to see Jacob Markstrom get traded for in the first place? Like the last goaltender I remember that got traded that got any sort of significant return was maybe Yaroslav Halak when the Canadians traded him way back then.
Or Corey Schneider.
Schneider. But those trades are so few and far between.
Yeah.
If Jacob Markstrom got a first-round pick, I'm sure the Canucks would consider it, but I don't think any team would even pay to get a first-round pick because there are so many good goaltenders out there in the first place.
And I would just say part of that bad asset management you've accused GMGB of is the fact that we don't have enough goalies in this organization because they didn't manage their assets well enough and we lost our newly acquired Mike McKenna on waivers. So, yeah, I just think they're too much in a hard spot right now to even
but I
consider
actually
it. But I
don't
take your point.
I don't blame Jim Benning for Mike McKenna.
Yeah, see, I'm with Chris on that one. I think that's just like all of this now with DiPietro starting is unfortunate. Like you can't foresee Demko and then Markstrom getting injured, right? Like it's just
and Bachman
and Bachman, yeah,
right,
and Bachman,
or McKenna getting picked off waivers.
Yeah, and even if it is like that's McKenna, he was a throw-in. Like that was
it's just that
not a big
Bachman
deal.
has been injured for a long time, so it's just
he's done for the season.
Right.
And that's where McKenna, like them acquiring McKenna was to essentially be the depth, the number 3 or 4 goaltender in Utica. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the only way that it was the waiver wire, and Philadelphia, who's, got 400 goaltenders signed to a contract this year, decided to put in a play.
Right.
We got to move on. We have to move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Can we talk about Sven Baertschi? Sven Baertschi. We'll talk about. I'll go next.
Yeah.
Sven Baertschi. Let's just go around the room very quickly and do yes or no's. Is his season over, Chris?
Well, I think it's too early
yes or no?
to tell. I refuse to answer.
Adam?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Okay, so we got 3 yeses and 1 fence sitter.
I think he should it should be done,
Yes,
even if it like
that's what
he just needs
would
to
say.
sit out the year.
That's
Okay,
not a
so
yes.
let's expand on that. Anna.
No, I think it is. I think it is the yes, and I think it should be a yes.
So
too.
in other words,
Yes,
Adam,
that's-
I think Adam and Anna are saying morally his season should be over, and probably physically his season should be over as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
I would
just
agree.
because I think I really, 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 really hope that it's not a career-ending injury, and it looks pretty bad right now. So I would honestly rather just call it a day and have him slowly rebuild back to a place where he could potentially maybe play again.
Let's
but not
just,
this year.
further expanding on Anna's point, let's remove the hockey aspect of it from Sven Baertschi. He's got a kid on the way. Like, he's about to be a dad, and to have post-concussion syndrome, like being sensitive to light and, not sort of knowing what day of the week it is and stuff like that, like, that's not cool for any parent or parent to be. And I think there are things beyond just hockey, and even looking at it, whether you're like pro tank or pro playoffs or pro development, like Sven Baertschi having had another concussion, like I just think that it's better for him to just take the rest of this season off and come back ready for September.
yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
I'd like to point out, though, that wasn't the question. Like, I wholeheartedly agree he should not play. Like, the fact that he's suffering post-concussion symptoms related to the original concussion that had him out, the question I'd ask is, how the hell did he come back in the first place? Because obviously he wasn't in the clear, or ultimately he was, quote unquote, because players may not fully realize the gravitas. But the question you ask is his season over? That was it. And we've already seen that his season probably should have been, and yet he came back. So not knowing what's going on in his head, not knowing on how the team evaluates this, could he come back? Unfortunately, he could. And again, that's the thing I'm wanting to point out. I don't think he should. I truly don't. Like, it is so serious when you're experiencing symptoms, about a month later from when you were cleared?
Yeah, that's, I think, because it was like it to me, like answering the question, will he be back? No, he won't, because things seem that severe. So
okay, so taking the standpoint further on Baertschi, do you think that there are serious questions, Anna, that his career might be in jeopardy at this point?
It's definitely something you've got to think about, right? And the optics don't look good on the Canucks this season, having brought or pushed players in some way that were suffering concussion for them later to have setbacks. That's happened twice this year. So it doesn't look good for the organization to have pushed Sven Baertschi back and his form kind of masked. Clearly he was still suffering. I think it's a serious question, and that's would be part of why I'm so fully on board of having him take the time off to figure out if there is a way back. I actually spoke to my stepmom about that, about his injury this weekend, because she knows nothing about hockey, but she's a doctor and knows lots about head injuries, and she was pretty concerned about the whole thing. Well, just that, when I told her that how many concussions he'd had, and like how that was pretty common throughout the league to have 3+ concussions in a career and keep playing. She was pretty alarmed by that kind of approach, that there wasn't more caution.
I would say, these. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Chris. You go first.
Well, I was going to say two things. One, you brought up the point that this is the second time the Vancouver Canucks have had a player, proceed to have a long-term absence due to concussion-related injury when they were, quote-unquote, okay. I do agree that it's a problem, but part of the problem is the fact that the players themselves can ultimately get beyond what any, medical professional might be able to ascertain. I mean, I'm not trying to suggest that, doctors aren't good, whatnot. It's just that because the concussion and the symptoms themselves are generally reported by the player, that we've seen it time and time again in professional sport, the player is able to get back into the game having just had their bell rung and continue to play, because it's a playoff run, only to suffer the effects later. So I do want to point out that we're not necessarily blaming the Vancouver Canucks, but the thing that I think is concerning, and it's the point that you were talking about your mom, isn't it almost a rite of passage in hockey? I mean, professional sports, but in hockey, to suffer a concussion and come back and succeed, even with all of the light that's on the issue. I mean, look at Sidney Crosby. How many has he suffered in his career?
A lot.
Right? And he continues to come back. And Matt, you raised a really good point. At what point does a professional player determine, that this just ain't right anymore? I got to do it for my family, for my kids, for me. We don't see it so much in hockey, though I think we are now. But like, look at the NFL and how many players have suffered some extremely degenerative issues that have impacted their lives to the extent that they take their life.
Okay, and
Right.
so
Well, Chris, I think. Sorry.
no, go ahead, Adam.
Go ahead, Matt. I was just gonna say, Chris, you said, I got to do this for my family, for me. Like, so many people think the other way around. Like, especially, I mean, I don't want to talk about football too much, but where you might have a lower social income, or hockey players who don't have anything other than hockey in their life. Like, this is my livelihood. This is how I make my money. I got to make my money. I got to be able to support my family. So I think it's
a double-edged sword. Yeah. And I get that. Like, especially like on the NFL side, you're right, where they are supporting, when we say family, it's like their direct family, their indirect family, their indirect family, direct family. Like, it's a huge network that they're carrying. And then suddenly to see their career, taken into jeopardy, well, that's a paycheck too. So it's definitely a tough issue to evaluate. And I think that goes into the point that I sort of tried to refer back to earlier, is that, is the player the best person to judge when to call it? Because ultimately they're the ones in charge.
I don't think the player is often the person who judges that. Like, look at Derek Dorsett last year. I don't think he said to himself that he was done after his neck injury. I think the player advised him that he should be done, or that the team advised him he should be done.
Well,
but he made the call.
Yeah, he
ultimately made the call, but that wasn't without the Canucks giving their input on what he should do.
Well, no, yeah, I'm not suggesting that teams don't provide input. Like, the doctor essentially told him, you continue to play and you could potentially give up walking. Right. And, that had a significant impact. Derek finally said, you know what? No, that's not how I'm going to go out. And he made that decision. But there are a lot of players who are given that information who they roll the dice.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
Keep going, Chris.
Well, no, the point is just that just because you're told by the team you're not going to play anymore, or a doctor you're not going to play anymore, it doesn't stop them from playing. Exhibit A, Manny Malhotra.
Right. And Canucks in that spot, they did make the call that they thought was, the morally right one to do, was they couldn't justify putting him out on the ice there. So that's got to be a tough spot for a player. But beyond the direct advice they're giving the players, this is kind of a big picture point, but hockey does have a lot to answer for in the way that they create players and encourage them to play. I would advise all of our listeners to check out the film Hello Destroyer, which is about a junior player who is shaped into this tough enforcer guy, which is, although it's dying out from the NHL, it's still pretty common in lower levels of the game. But then he ends up going too far and he gets, really badly injures another player, and that kind of destroys his life. So, yeah, there's just a lot in the culture beyond that hockey should kind of examine itself with in terms of player injuries.
Okay, so wrapping up the conversation on Sven Baertschi, do you guys think that he will play for the Canucks at some point next season?
I think he will, yes.
Yeah.
Chris?
Probably.
Whether or
Chris
not
is going to continue riding the fence.
Shouldn't. Well, you're asking me to go and suggest someone's career is over when I have absolutely no input.
Of
Nor do I
course
know
you
the
don't. None of
situation.
us have input either, but we're still going to put our guesses in.
Okay, I'm not as cavalier to guess whether or not someone's health or career is over. I can tell you, I think he needs to take a strong look for all the reasons you've mentioned before. But I'm not going to do that. And
Okay.
personally, I feel that that's not something we should do.
Okay. Fair enough.
Let's be honest about the fact that we're here talking about players. And this goes to maybe the point that I was talking about around Sully and Markstrom. Ultimately, we're playing around with the idea of someone's career when we talk about trading them. But now we're talking about someone's health and well-being. And I'm sorry if that upsets me. And I'm sorry that I have an emotional attachment here. But I have no problem if we say what we think. But to be told you're sitting on the fence and there's something wrong with that, to me, that's abhorrent. Like, I think we all should be sitting on the fence. We can say, here's what I think. But at no point should we ever pick on ourselves or anyone else to hope for the best and simply say, I'm going to give them the space to figure it out, and we go from there. We can talk about the decision after it's been made, and we can pick it apart. But I think it's wrong for us to go down that path.
Okay. Chris,
Yeah,
do you
and
want
I
to
think
continue?
we all do come from the perspective that we hope they make an informed decision and reflect on it and what's best for the player. So
yeah, and I'm not suggesting that we're yourself, myself, or anyone here is asking for them not to make the informed position, but I think we need to take a step back and honestly ask ourselves: is it wrong to sit on the fence with an issue like this? And I personally don't think it is.
Fair enough.
So that's sort of it for me for.
Yeah, I think we're done with Sven at this point, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
So what else is on the rundown?
Well, we could talk about Hutton and Stetcher stepping up, minus tonight. But yeah.
Although even tonight we have seen Stetcher stepping up for Hutton and defending his honor, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Vander Kane sucker punching Troy Stetcher for those who didn't watch the game. But we had talked about maybe selling high on guys like Stetcher and Hutton, and now the way they've won, the fact that Edler's out, but two, the fact and how well they've played recently. Hutton with a big time bounce back season, Stetcher playing well, and I think almost even being an upgrade on PP1 there. I think there's no way you can trade him now. So I'd be happy to hear what you guys think about that. But
yeah,
Anna,
it's
go ahead.
I was just going to say, defensive depth, if it wasn't shot before, it's definitely shot now. And
yeah, big time.
So I just don't think that we can really, if we were even to make even the slimmest chance of saying we're still competing in this season, we need to kind of keep that core together there.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough, like watching Pouliot and Goodbranson live. Like, it was just tough to watch. Pouliot has a guy with no stick checking him, and he still throws the puck up the middle right onto a flame stick at that game. Anyway, so with how bad those guys are, they're not even NHL caliber, really. Like, they're barely replacement level players, below replacement level, I would say. So you can't give up two guys who have been performing like clear-cut top four players. So,
well, with Edler out and the fact that we have Goodbranson and Pouliot, who are essentially the third pairing. Having a Stetcher or Hutton go elevates those two to a role that I don't think they fit. The unfortunate component, though, is the Canucks don't really have the depth in Utica to replace a departure. Like, I think, again, the trading, because there's value, I think it's important, but ultimately, it's, yes, we can think about a Markstrom going, but obviously it's not. It's the same situation with Stetcher and Hutton now, or even a Tanev, like Edler getting hurt, just kind of like what we talked about last episode. Like, it's just, that becomes the non-starter. Whether or not, the Canucks, were to, like, the offer would have to include someone coming back. Like, that's the problem they have. About the only position, and it's loosely a position that they have depth where they can start dealing, is up front.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of, if you're management, you got to look at the team and be like, okay, are we okay with fighting for a playoff spot with what we have, and getting to the show and seeing what the hell happens, or like, and acknowledging that you've basically been carried there by 2 or 3 players, or do you say, okay, we are still rebuilding, like we said, even if you make the playoffs, you're a rebuilding team, and try to acquire assets. So it really just, I think, depends on where management's at in their minds, and then that will totally shape the direction the team goes. They're in a weird limbo spot right now, but I guess it's one of those wait and see things.
If they were, like, I think we talked about last episode, if they were to dish players out, and still be in a playoff spot, great. If they dish players out and they tumble to the bottom, are we upset by that?
No, not at all.
No.
Yeah, and the problem is that it's, when we look at the rebuild, it's year 2, year 3 out where there's a struggle. Like, again, we say the Canucks have 1.5, decent prospect defensemen right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's that doesn't help you out when the Canucks ultimately need 4. I mean, right? Edler and Tanev are getting old. They're eventually going to move on or retire. Stetcher and Hutton, they might be able to elevate their game, but if you have only 1.5, you're still missing half a blue liner, and then you have no real depth there. I think, if anything, if the Canucks were to deal someone on the blue line, it's someone in Utica, or it's a Biega, who I'd hate to see go. I quite like Biega in the 7 spot. I think he plays it very well for the Canucks, but you can always get a 7.
Yeah. That's very fair.
Yeah, and I think Biega is a good utility player. So it would be a shame to see him go, but yeah, it wouldn't break your heart.
No, and I think that's kind of where the Canucks are now. If they are going to make any deals at the deadline, it is going to be these kind of small depth players in return for mid to late round picks. And that's just like I just don't see a way where the Canucks can make a big splash. Or I see ways they can, but I just don't see a way where they do it. So who knows?
Yeah.
Well, why don't we take a break here on a C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast? You're listening to us on CanucksHockeyBlog.com.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on it.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? Because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
Okay, so last episode we talked about the fact that the Vancouver Canucks are in a playoff spot, and the three of us had sort of tossed around the idea, is it a good thing? We'd sort of alluded to it in the latter part of the podcast here, but Matt, are you on the wagon or not?
I am. I think for the first time this season, I'm not ready to say that the Canucks will miss the playoffs. Let's put it that way. I'm not saying it's a lock by any means, but I'm thinking now it is as close to a 50-50 shot as it's ever been before.
Wow. Big call.
See,
You think so, Matt? You really 50-50?
I think so, but it's also by virtue of the lack of competition for a playoff spot. Like, if you look at the standings, I think you see the Minnesota Wild in one of the spots, you see the St. Louis Blues in the other wild card spot, and then you see the Canucks walking just below them. And I think the Blues do have a game or two in hand on the Canucks at this point, correct?
Yes, they do, and they've also been playing very well.
And the Blues have, as you mentioned, been playing well lately. However, the Wild have lost Mikko Koivu for the rest of the season, so I expect the Minnesota Wild to fall out of it. Colorado, you're seeing a little bit of regression. I think the only other competition the Canucks actually have for one of the playoff spots is from the Chicago Blackhawks, who are the hottest team in the league with 7 wins in a row. So for me, I think that it is by virtue of a lack of competition and the great equalizer that is Elias Pettersson that the Canucks do have a 50-50 chance at making the postseason.
All right, fair enough. I respect that. You've convinced me. I still might be 60-40. They miss it just because I don't know. I mean, they're not going to win games where they're outshot 47-24 or whatever often, right? And I feel like those kind of games are going to happen more than they don't. There's a good chance there. Like you said, there's only a few teams who provide a lot of competition for that spot. But I think they might be hotter or better than the Canucks. So
yeah, and it does obviously depend what happens with the goalie situation. If it's just it seems like Markstrom is out on a precautionary note, and it's not actually anything serious. But as you say, like when they're being outshot so badly, Pettersson can only do so much, and he can't hold up the whole team, especially if they don't have a goalie kind of stealing games for them.
Didn't we suggest early on in the season, though, that the Vancouver Canucks' key to success was those high-scoring games where they score one more than the other team?
Yeah, we did talk about when they beat Colorado 7-6 or 6-5 or whatever it was in overtime.
7-6,
exactly
yeah.
And I actually think the Canucks still have that ability. It's just ultimately we're now seeing how a blue line that's having difficulty distributing the puck, getting up front to the players who can produce, has been problematic. Special teams has been rough. It's unfortunate that that's the case, but I do wonder if the Canucks don't have it in them where they have a goaltender who can steal them those wins. Because I think that's something else we had said. They need that to happen for them to be successful as well. As a goaltender to steal a few extra wins that they didn't quite have before. Markstrom's been doing it. Just looking at last 10, like right now, in the wild card position, there's really only 2 teams that have been hotter than quote unquote the Canucks in the last 10, and that's the Blues and the Blackhawks, which Matt alluded to. The Canucks are actually as hot as the Los Angeles Kings are right now with a 5-3-2. So 50-50 isn't far-fetched. Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think given what we were saying about this team when the season started.
It'd be a whole lot happier if it was like 50-50 odds and Vancouver had Ottawa's pick.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
I know, Colorado's sitting pretty, but
man, if those Senators, they lose Duchesne and Stone, they are just, wow. I don't even know. One of the worst. We're going to talk about a bottom feeding team for a long time. That's going to be one of them.
Yep.
So,
and to answer that question that you'd asked, Matt, the Blues have 2 games in hand on the Vancouver Canucks.
Nice.
Yeah, the reason I'm struggling is that it's just like, well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like that's, I think, kind of what I was saying earlier. It's like if you get it, it's one of those things. You see what happens. I think it is very good experience for guys like Becker and Pettersson and Horvat too to get that playoff big time experience. And I don't think there'd be any expectations. It would be a lot of fun. I think with this team, it's a level.
And yeah, we've said before, if it was against Calgary Flames, it would be a heck of a lot of fun.
Did you just zip up your jacket or something there, Anna?
No? Did it sound like it? I promise.
Yeah, what does that sound?
I promise I'm not trying to leave the podcast mid-record.
It was like, it sounded like, I don't know, like a zipper, or you're like putting on your jacket or something like that. You know, like that sort of, I don't know, nylon on nylon sound.
Oh, yeah. No, I promise I'm not trying to beat a hasty retreat.
Yeah, apologies to the listeners who may be worried that Anna's now bugging out on us. The
Do we call it Brexit when she leaves the show?
Oh,
but she'll never leave then. We'll just negotiate forever.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So,
Chris, how about you tell people where they can find us?
Okay. Well, you're listening to us right now.
Did we have anything else?
Well, I was just going through your notes here, and you had wanted to possibly talk about Tyler Madden.
Oh, yeah, he won the Bean Pot. Got an assist. Adam, did you see that?
Yeah, it looked great doing it, too. I did not see the assist, no.
It's a pretty nice dangle.
But I saw his... Yeah?
I think it's just amazing how far he's jumped up the charts here in the last...
Yeah, in Judd we trust.
Yeah.
Adam, remember when we thought we should draft Jake Wise instead?
Jake Wise? Yeah, boy, do I.
Whoops.
But yeah, I'm going to let... Oh, that is a nice dangle. Hot damn. That's fun. That's nice. Okay, cool. That's exciting.
How long do the Canucks have Judd signed to a contract for?
As long as they can hold on to their icy death grip on him.
Well, yeah, I'm not suggesting let him go. I'm just curious, like, at what point does another team come knocking? And
yeah, I mean, he was in the conversation for Oilers GM then.
Although,
a little bit.
Thankfully, it's the Oilers.
Was he really? Oh, don't let that happen. Don't ever let that happen. That would be the saddest.
Well, yeah.
I get that, you know, GM is GM, but if you were Judd, do you really want to go to the Oil right now?
Yeah, does anybody
right, like that?
Want to? They are. I mean, man, Hitchcock's comments the other day, pretty scathing.
So I think you sort of, you know, there'll be other phone calls. You wait until that phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he has time.
Yeah. Anywho, as far as where you can find us, you are listening to us already, but you probably tuned in through your favorite podcast app, because wherever, or maybe you go and click the play button on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. But if you're looking for the C4 podcast everywhere else, the easiest place to find us is in Discord. Gate 16 chat is where it's at, where we talk to all of our listeners. We also have a special room for those who support us on Patreon as well, which we'll get to in a moment. But if you do want to join Discord, if you haven't done so already, the easiest way to get there is go to bit.ly/C4 Discord, C4 Discord, all caps, or send us a shout out on Twitter at the C4 Podcast saying, hey, how do I get to Discord? Because then we can actually respond, reply, tell you this is how. If you are wanting to support us by helping to keep the lights on by tossing a buck or two our way, you can do so via Patreon. And there are a variety of tiers and a variety of benefits for those that do support us. To get to Patreon, just go to patreon.com/C4 podcast and in turn read up on it. You'll see there's a lot of blocked content because, again, for our Patreon supporters, they get a whole lot more value than just the weekly podcast episodes. Now, I do want to point out one very key important thing. There will not be a podcast next week. No, it's the family day long weekend for us here. So we're going to be spending our time with our families, hopefully. But
not me.
Well, okay. I'm not your family.
Can I borrow someone else's family?
Go join Adam's family.
No,
I don't. Thanks, Adam.
No. Hang out with Matt and the Dad Lee. And go maybe visit, Bo's house.
That's not a bad idea.
Hang out with Bo Horvat's family.
Yeah, okay, I'm okay with that. Sold.
Yeah. But that would be for those keeping track at home. You won't find an episode on February 19th, as you might expect. So look for us to show back up on February 26th. But wrapping things up, any final words of wisdom there, Anna?
I just really, really hope it doesn't get much worse for Mikey DiPietro. I guess when you listen tomorrow, you'll find out how much worse it got for him. But yikes!
That was going to be mine. I'll go a different direction. watching Pettersson live is a great joy. Just all the little things he does, getting to see him in person, even just carrying the puck up the neutral zone is it's like that goal Besser scored. And Pettersson's 1-on-2, and he just skates around the net, kills some time, and then fires a perfect pass to Besser. He's a special player, and I can't believe we get to watch him for the next decade or so.
Sweet. Was that your final words to wisdom too there, Adam?
Yeah,
Matt?
I think so.
Hashtag pray for Mikey. And
Yeah.
yeah, I hope he's not here next week just for goaltender situation purposes.
Heck, has word come out about Demko?
It's another week away.
Another week? Okay.
Yeah, but I imagine Markstrom will be back in net in the next game.
Yeah.
As for me, thanks for tuning in. This was an episode where you got to hear us raw, and for that, I hope you don't mind. Again, the idea is that we are just four people sitting around the table talking hockey, and sometimes, as we are wont to do, we do let our emotions come through. But I can assure you, everything that you hear here on the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast is completely genuine. It's why you love us so much. So on behalf of Anna Forsyth at A4603, Adam Ovenall Carter at Adam FOC, Matt Lee at Matt Lee _61, and myself, Chris Golden at Light Force, we are signing off the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast with the two words we do each and every episode, and that is, we're out.
Thanks for listening to the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com.